if we're trying to make men and women equal, what we're really doing though is saying that what capacities men have or strengths men have are superior to the capacities that women have. Like, why is, and you were saying this, like, why is brute strength so important? Is that really something that we value someone for? Like, we would in a particular situation, like if it's someone's fighting in the UFC or whatever, or if it's like certain Olympic sports, you value that. But do you value that day to day? Does that impact your success in life? Not really. But there's like strength that women have that now it's like, if you value that strength of, let's say, emotional strength, like the ability, like, okay, a good example is A Quiet Place, right? Like, in that movie, have you seen that movie?
No, I know the story. Like, I know
Okay.
the plot of it.
Okay, so it's, like John, I forget the names. Maybe we are never even told the names of the characters now that I think about it. But like with John and Emily's character, like John Krasinski and Emily Blunt's character, they're both really strong and capable in their own way. But like Emily Blunt's character chooses to have a child and give birth at a time that is incredibly dangerous to do that. Like, women have been doing that obviously for eons, but like doing that in a situation like that where you can't even make a sound, and she chooses to do that and chooses to make sure she has children, so that that's the priority, right? And she even says that to John, like, if the kids aren't safe, like, what are we doing? What else matters if not our future? And that level of strength to put something else before you and take care of that, and like go through so much intense pain, and like we just don't value that anymore. We say, like, the whole fact that women can raise kids, like, you probably would feel uncomfortable saying that as a man, right? Like, you would probably be attacked a ton for saying that as a man, whereas at least as a woman I can say that. But like, why don't we value that? Because that takes like unbelievable strength to do that. And I'm not saying like a woman's place is in the house or anything, or in the office. I'm saying it's like up to her, but like, we have to stop saying that what men do is superior to what women do. So we have to be in the office, like we have to be CEOs, like, or we have to be so strong that we're beating people up. It's like, no, there are different types of strength in the world.
Yeah, this is a point of view that I've actually heard a lot from a lot of different people about. Um, those aspects that are kind of unique to like the feminine side of characters, whether it's compassion, endurance, like the ability to like go through the pain of childbirth, all those things that are kind of uniquely female are really devalued in modern movies. And what they do instead is they essentially just make women into men, with the same attitudes and the same desire to conquer and dominate, and it always feels really false. Like, it doesn't ring true for me. And I don't know if some of it is born out of this just really simplistic idea of like, well, the kind of movies that make the most money are the big action movies and the comic book superhero things, and so that's what we need to focus on, and so that's what we need to put our female characters into. And when those are the kind of movies that they're in, they've got no option but to be strong and kick ass and beating people up and all that sort of thing. Because the kind of movies that you would get that would exemplify all those feminine qualities would be more serious, like more reserved kind of movies that just wouldn't make the same kind of money. And I don't know if that's part of the rationale behind it, or if it's just this desire to say, no, women and men are exactly the same, and there's no distinction between them, of course. Like, and don't think about it. Just watch the movie. I don't know, because maybe it varies between studios, and maybe there's different reasons for it, but the result is the same. It means the construction of characters that you can't really believe in. And a movie that Muller and I have certainly talked about before that combines those two ideas would be something like the Terminator franchise, where you had Sarah Connor, who's a mother, and so her main objective in the second movie is to protect her son, and so she has to transform herself into this soldier in order to be able to do that. So she's a strong character that's capable of fighting if need be. But she's doing it for that maternalistic drive to protect. And I think that's an interesting merging of those two ideas in a character. But you don't often get that now, because the whole idea of like female characters as mothers
Mhm.
is very pared down now. A Quiet
Yeah.
Place is probably a real outlier in that trend,
Right, right. Yeah,
which is
absolutely.
it's just it's a strange way of doing it. And the there was something that you mentioned in your video that really stood out to me. It was when you're talking about how these writers construct characters like Captain Marvel or Ray or whoever. There's a real kind of bitterness to how they write them, and the result is that you get two strands to this. One, you've got the female character who is really obnoxious and entitled and kind of domineering, and at the same time they take the male characters and they make them kind of weak and
Mhm.
a bit useless and pathetic, and so it makes it easier for the female characters to take the lead and just kind of dominate every situation they're in. And I guess that's one of the things that becomes really frustrating as well. Like, I'm fine with the idea that you can write really strong, assertive female characters. You don't have to make the male characters weak at the same time. Like, why not have them balance each other out nicely?
Yeah.
It's like that's not allowed anymore, because if you have a male character who is strong and assertive and confident, that's somehow considered toxic now, and so
Yeah.
that can't be allowed. And so it's doubly frustrating, I guess, as a storyteller and just an audience member to see that.
Yeah. With that interview that Brie Larson did, where she was sitting with Chris Hemsworth, and it's like that famous interview where she like she gets asked, like, is there competition between you guys, like, and who's the strongest, right?
Yeah.
And I actually think of that moment a lot because I keep like trying to understand like what was running through her mind, because she was like pissed. She was pissed that people were not accepting that she was the strongest. And I think, like, all joking aside is fine, but she was actually taking it really personally. And like, Charisma on Command did a really good video dissecting that moment. But
Mm.
I think it's that same idea, is that, okay, a woman is a strong character, but that she can't be challenged. Like that fact just needs to be accepted. Like, yes, you are great. And that's what she was hoping for in that moment, I think, where they would be like really pandering to her and be like, yeah, you are the most powerful. And they wouldn't do that. Instead, they were doing what men do, or competitive men or competitive women do, which is that if you put up a challenge, they're going to step up to it, and you have to earn your way out of that. We can't just like stand aside and let you have that. And so this like whole thing of like, okay, there's going to be a strong female character, and then the man is going to be completely useless and completely just pander to her the whole time.
Mm.
And like, one of my favorite movies, I think, of like recent years is Edge of Tomorrow, because it's like
Hmm.
you have a really strong female character, but you also have a really strong male character who like starts off weak and actually earns his position to her. And she never like panders to him or looks down on him. She's instead challenges him, and challenges him to reach her level. And he does that, and he actually goes beyond that, right? And even then, there's no frustration or anything like that from her side, like this like immature perspective that someone might take, like, oh, I'm being bested. It's and I think that's another thing, is like, I find is that women are now looked at, they're actually like quite immature. They're not they're they are like getting into pissing matches, which is not something you usually said when like women were challenging each other. You never talked of them of like having pissing matches with each other. Like the James Bond movie is a good example, where the new 007 initially was like challenging him and like immediately giving him attitude. And I'm glad they really toned that down, because that was kind of annoying. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was just
Those reshoots happen for a
unnecessary.
reason, I
Yes.
suspect.